This is my second Final Fantasy video in a row, so I apologize for the repetition, but this is something that can't go unmentioned. In February, I bought and beat Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, the second part of the Remake trilogy. It was an exceptional game. The battle systems were brilliantly designed, there was an insane amount of content packed in, the world was large and dense, and Chapter 13, the one where you explore the Temple of the Ancients, has got to be one of Square's greatest works in the past decade. And one more thing, it seems with each installment, the bar for music just keeps getting higher. Going into 16, my bar was already set insanely high for music, but they still shocked me. And going into Rebirth, I set the bar as high as I could, but they still blew me into the atmosphere with that soundtrack. But yeah, let me calm down. I make it no secret that I absolutely love this game, but unfortunately, there's a huge drawback. The atmosphere. Older games are pretty messy. For me to get through an older game, I need some sort of a hook. I'm a huge Mario fan, so that hooked me through the older games like 64 or Sunshine. I couldn't say the same when I first started Final Fantasy VII, my first Final Fantasy game. I didn't have any sort of motivation to get me through. At first, it was a struggle. I didn't like the random encounters, the map design confused me, I was used to autosave, so dying in this game felt very cruel. This was a very rough experience for me gameplay-wise, but I still kept going. I wasn't sure what kept pulling me back and what had hooked me. I think I finally found the reason I didn't give up on this game like I did with others. What kept me hooked was the world. Remake and Rebirth are two very different games. One taking place in just one linear city, while the other one opens up the whole world. FF7's tone really sets in after you leave Midgar. Kalm is the very first thing I think of when it comes to the lonely atmosphere of FF7. Midgar is bustling, it's cruel, polluted, and loud. It isn't like the rest of the areas in Final Fantasy VII. Remake did a great job depicting Midgar. Rebirth had to shift its tone from the loud and bustling tone Remake had established in Midgar to the quiet and lonely tone we're supposed to see in the rest of the game. But it didn't. My biggest complaint with Rebirth is how exciting it all is. They replace all the sadness and grayness with colorful skies, lavish living, and ceremonial settings. Take these examples. Kalm in the original FF7 is very quiet. When I first got here, I was impressed. Midgar was so corrupt and chaotic. Kalm was an amazing change of pace. It was ambient, peaceful, but dull at the same time. The colors were dull, and the town itself was dark. It was too peaceful even. When you're too peaceful, it almost feels like a way to escape the noise and chaos. And Kalm giving off that energy just makes you sad. Something about the music here, and the soft lighting, and the townspeople, it all feels sad because you've seen what Midgar is like. And this, in comparison, feels dying and depressing. Rebirth completely destroyed Kalm. It's very bright, very festive, and very ceremonial. It's a very rich-looking town that doesn't seem to have any sign of struggle. This is kind of lame. The ambience is gone. This place feels as loud as Midgar, but happy instead of chaotic. They completely tore everything Kalm stood for to shreds. Other vanities like Queen's Blood and Magnata books makes this place feel very luxurious, almost like we have nothing to worry about. If the original FF7 presented Kalm in this manner, I would have had a much harder time getting hooked. I went into a lot of detail here, but there are so many other instances. After Kalm, you move to Junon, which they did a much better job of representing. In the original, to leave Junon and get to Costa del Sol, you have to sneak onto a depressing cargo ship. Rebirth replaces it with a luxurious cruise ship that included a Queen's Blood tournament. Other details are also replaced. In FF7 OG, on your way to Corel, you find a nest of baby birds. You have the option of destroying the nest for some Phoenix Dawns, or leaving the nest there. Rebirth makes you fight a boss fight to save the nest from a predator. No options. I'm not saying I want to kill a bunch of baby birds for Phoenix Dawns. I'm just saying that the tone and mood of the game takes a major hit when the option isn't provided. Other things contribute too. Gongaga is no longer destroyed, and it's no longer a pity. It doesn't show us the horrors of what Shinra's reactors can do. Cosmo Canyon was an eyesore in Rebirth. It actually hurt my soul. On a side note, the music actually got way too good here. Like seriously, I don't know how they can keep topping the Cosmo Canyon remixes. But they cooked here as well. But instead of a quiet little cave that acted as an escape from Shinra, it's now a bustling tourist destination that feels way too cramped. It's not the same, and they absolutely ruined one of the most beautiful places in the game. The whole point of this place was that it was supposed to be empty, ambient, and untouched by the dangers of modern vanity. There are so many other examples I can think of. Some of you may be a little confused after these examples. After all, the original Final Fantasy VII wasn't all gray skies. There were many weird and fun places across the planet. Most notably, there was the Gold Saucer. The Gold Saucer is an attraction. In the original game, it's a striking area. Everything is happy, but it isn't. The Gold Saucer is one of my favorite locations in any video game. Whether the designers meant to do this or not, the Gold Saucer invokes the opposite feeling for me. It's supposed to be happy and celebrating, but I find it lonely. Just as lonely as the rest of the game. This is because of the juxtaposition, the comparison. When the entire game is suffering, and you find the Gold Saucer sandwiched between the pitiful North Corel and the treacherous Corel prison, it makes for a killer juxtaposition. A juxtaposition in art and literature is a comparison. It's the contrast of two ideas or things. The difference between the saucer and the rest of the game is striking. It makes for an amazing setting and atmosphere, just because you know it's out of place, and almost kind of forced. Like people need something to entertain them. It's almost like an escape. An escape from the inevitable. An escape from the dark, sad, and haunting depression that will one day take over the entire world. The juxtaposition helps paint an escape that's temporary, which makes it a darker, sadder place. Now, of course, I highly doubt this is what the developers intended, but it's what's present. Rebirth destroys this juxtaposition. You've been running around in bright, colorful fields, festive, fun lands, meeting happy and cheerful people. Even though Red 13 assures us that it's only a cover and that the planet is actually suffering and barely clinging on, it doesn't do anything for us. The original painted the entire juxtaposition with a stick and burn type world building, seeing Midgar and Kalm, the depression under the city of Junon and the cargo ship, and then going to Corel. It painted the theme of the world. Rebirth relies on this one piece of dialogue from Red 13 to have that original contrast be presented. It doesn't work when everything is so much more joyous. This video was a 2-in-1. It presents the way Final Fantasy VII painted one of the most atmospheric worlds I've ever seen, and also how Rebirth fails to capture it. Rebirth did a wonderful job with everything else, but Final Fantasy games get their identity from their worlds, and Rebirth is rejecting that identity, trying to push for a newer, more joyful world. But it's the old and ambient one I find so beautiful.